Awesome. Now I'm recording. So what we'll do today is we're going to be first starting with some updates. Then we're going to go into a very lightweight demo, and then we're going to have like a discussion and your feedback off the back of this. So first, just in terms of updates, these are the key things that we've done over the last month. The first is matrix views. A lot of you use us for information delivery plans. One of the biggest things in information delivery plans has always been this concept of stages and being able to see them in what looks like a matrix. Adding matrix views allows us to unlock that. I'll be showing that in a second. The second is calendar views. So you all have dates again on these plans and on these trackers. You want to display them in a calendar so that they look like a task, especially when you're not looking at like the high level milestone dates and you're looking at the detailed task dates. Ideally, you want to be able to see that in a calendar format. And that's something that we had heard from many of you for a while. Last month, we launched transposed views. Off the back of transposed views, there have been further improvements that have come in. So I'll just very quickly show you what that looks like. A big area, generally speaking, is usability, as I had outlined in one of the previous sessions. So we continue to invest in that. So we make we're making tables easier and easier to use. And that includes things like adding shortcuts, for example, for just cutting data and so on and so forth. And then there are three, I would say they're not traditional product updates. The first is Morta AI improvements. So with Morta AI, we're continuing off the back of usage. We're getting to see where things go wrong and what you're using it for. So it's getting better and better when it comes to things like formulas, automatically retrying things. When it comes to the help desk itself and you asking questions in relation to support, we had seen sometimes it wasn't necessarily giving the right answers because we had a mix of ways with which we were inputting data into it. Now, instead, we have more grounded help desk answers because we're using specific context that helps us improve the feedback that you're getting in the answers that you get in response to the questions that you may have. And then the agent itself is being more honest about failures or anything that goes wrong. And we're working more and more on being able to handle a sequence of tasks. So whereas before you would say, for example, create an information delivery plan, it would do a single step. Now we're working on more enabling the range of steps that have to happen in order for an information delivery plan to be created, as one example. Another big area, I think, especially for some of you, this will be relevant, anyone who's more international. Data residency is a big thing that many of you have asked about. Obviously, our core data residency has been in the UK, but we're starting to add more and more infrastructure. A lot of our work in the last month has actually focused on facilitating the move so that we can support multiple data residencies for the multinational organizations that have projects all over the world. As part of that, we're starting a Canadian production environment, and that is basically live. So if you have any questions or you're looking for projects in Canada, get in touch. And that also gives us the foundation to do a lot more in the future. So we're looking at data residency options in the UAE, Saudi, and the US, and then others off the back of feedback that we get from you. But the other key one is some of you have in the past asked whether you would want, for instance, if you have a very specific client that wants things to be completely segregated in a tenancy of their own. So, for example, in defense, we hear that having a tenancy that's very specific to that client and that's completely segregated from everything else that may happen on Morta or that may happen in your environments, that is now feasible. So that's something that we can actually look at. Not necessarily like being able to have a specific instance that is just for that client and that is completely isolated from everything else that is happening in Morta. Now, having said that, over time, what we're also building is the ability for you to move data between these different instances to still get the understanding of how the organization is performing at scale, to be able to have templates across the different tenancies. That's a lot of what we're handling, but you will have the option to have specific projects having data residency in specific environments. That's usually like multi-residency is basically available for our scale-up customers. And then there is there are add-on fees in relation to adding data residency. So we can explore that with you if it's something that you're looking at. But I know especially for the large scale design firms, that's been a really important request over the last 2 years. So we've made a lot of progress on that this month. And from our end now, it's basically very easy to spin up additional additional data residency and additional options, but I've already mentioned some of the key ones that we're looking at. The last is we're doing a lot on security and reliability, like across the board. So we're, as many of you will know, we're ISO 27001 certified and Cyber Essentials Plus certified. As part of, we did it last year, we're renewing it this year. And as part of that, there are like the range of audits. And off the back of that, we've been doing more and more improvements when it comes to security, but also like there is reliability. So things like backups and being able to restore backups and so on and so forth are things that we've been working on and we continue to work on. Like we consider, obviously there are more and more features being added in, but we think things like data residency and like being a really secure and reliable platform are actually very core to Morta and the types of companies and clients and projects that we get used on, because we're being used more and more in like very sensitive industries where a lot of these things become really, really important. So there's a lot of emphasis from our end on things that will almost feel invisible within the product, but will have an impact on making sure that this is an enterprise platform that you can roll out across your projects and you can have confidence in rolling it out. Whenever anything happens with any of you, we take that as feedback and we look to improve the product as a result in order to improve reliability. Now, what do these look like? So, sorry, 1 second. So first, if we take matrix views, this is an example of matrix views built of IDPs. So obviously, this is the information delivery plan. What some of you will have in your tables is, for this stage, this is the deliverable that I'm expecting, right? But the issue that many of you have always had is while you want that, people are used to seeing it in Excel and a matrix. So here we've added the planned versus actual, like this is an example of a planned versus actual matrix. You can see here I have the list of files, but you can see instead of seeing them as rows, the stages, I now see stage 3 forecast date against the stage 3 actual date. And then I can see my stage 4 forecast date against my stage 4 actual date, rather than them being just rows for every one of the stages. To do that, all I do is set up a new view. So you can see here, we now have a new matrix view. Off the back of that, you then set your settings, you define your row labels, you define which column you're going to use as the label, and then you define which data fields you want to show within the matrix, and then that appears. So this is the first release, obviously. It's in beta. I know Rob already posted some feedback today on matrices and on matrix views and what can be improved there. So we'll be taking that type of feedback on board. So if you've not already started testing it, please do, and please do let us know if you have any feedback with regards to matrix views. The second one is calendar views. So calendar views, you can see here, this table is a table that has inspection and testing records in this case, but very similar to like an information delivery plan, especially for the design firms within you, like I would say. In IDPs, you're often not just putting the high level milestone dates, you're putting the task level dates. So this is exactly the day that I expect this drawing to be completed rather than the packages as a whole. So one of the key points of feedback we've received in the past is you want to be able to see that in the calendar. So you can see here, I now have that. I can see it in a calendar. I can see exactly what I'm meant to have. I can click on the record and then I can see that data and I can see what that looks like. So that's the calendar side of things. Then the next one that we've added, well, this is less of an addition, but more of an improvement. So it's weird, the clicking for some reason is weird. Transposed views, just as a recap, what are transposed views? Before, you would have this record of the company. So you have this. And what we saw many of you do is build a table which says data property, data entry, for example, and then you would want people to fill that in. And it would look something like this. The challenge with that, though, was it then wouldn't have any data types. So you're back to freeform, someone entering whatever they want to enter next to a value. Whereas here, what's happening is you're still basically using the tables and the data types that we have. So this, for example, is a select list next to discipline. It's a select list here, and then I can use that and I can work with that, and I'm filling in my data in the right way, and I'm having all of the properties that we like about Morta, and then that works off the back of that. This can also be used for starting to compare data between different values as well. So if I have multiple projects and I want to see them all as header, like as columns, I can start doing these types of things as well. To do this, all you're really doing again is I have the transpose view. Off the back of the transpose view, I pick what it is that I'm pivoting on, and then that displays this data for me. Calendar view, I appreciate I didn't actually go into how that gets set up, but I think like it's clear already. All that we have is here we have the calendar view, so I can click on new calendar view. You can then create the new calendar view, and then that's what this looks like. And then you can define what the label column is. You can define like the start date column, the end date column, and then you can go from there. And then you can benefit from the coloring and so on and so forth in the same way that you would have done in any of the other tables. Sorry, and like just generally speaking, where you use color, like the coloring type functionality. So those are the three key additions, like in terms of the product. The AI this time, I'm not gonna go over a demo. I just it's worth you playing around with AI, generally speaking. Treat it as this is something that is continuously improving off the back of things that may have failed in the past. Like that's kind of the mentality to be in. And that's just continuously improving. So I'm not going to do anything today. Last time I did a walkthrough of me building an information delivery plan off the back of the AI, but I won't be doing that today. But you'd see if you do that that's improving in the way that it does it. Now, Those are the key ones in terms of product updates. Beyond this, I want to go over two other things, and then I'll pause to see what feedback that you all have. So if you have any questions, please start thinking of them because I will soon, or any feedback, I will soon be asking you to contribute to the discussion. For those of you who have been using us for a few years, like some of you won't even know about something called scripts because like that's just disappeared from the platform for new users. For organizations that have been who started using us like prior to 2025 effectively, we had scripts prior to formulas. And at some point we wanted to deprecate scripts. We still weren't fully ready for that deprecation, so we kept it going. Now we're reaching the point where we have confidence that formulas should have everything that you need from scripts. And we officially want to migrate from scripts to formulas. So, and last time we didn't execute it well either. We just did it like very quickly and we said scripts are out. There are many reasons why we need to like get rid of scripts as a company. We just don't think it's healthy to have two different ways of doing the same thing is like the summary. And then most importantly, we think formulas are actually much more reliable at scale in the way we've set them up than of scripts. And a lot of the direction we're taking with AI as well is doubling down on formulas. So we just think it adds confusion when you have both and it impacts performance. So we need to go into one way of doing things because that actually helps us scale the platform much better. So scripts will be deprecated by November 2026. We have 5 months or so in front of us in order for us to make the migration if you are using scripts. After that date, scripts will no longer execute and they'll just completely stop. There are two options when you're looking to migrate from scripts. The first is, and I know some of you have already started doing that, do it yourself. And you can use the AI itself, like Morta's AI, in order to actually migrate from one to the other. So you can do that. You can take the script, you can feed it into the Morta AI, and you can be like, help me take that and move it into a formula. We've seen several of you. We then have a second option, which is you don't want to do it, completely get we're making a change on the platform. Happy to help you out and happy to make on our end to do heavy lifting in order to migrate you from scripts to formulas. So that is an option that is there. Just please contact your dedicated digital transformation lead. Let them know that you want help in migrating from scripts to formulas. We'll do that. There is no cost. We're not going to charge you services for us to make these changes. Just let us know. We have offered that to many of you, like when we've spoken one-on-one. Some have actually said there is a preference for doing it themselves so that they actually understand the formula, like they understand what has happened. So I personally am someone who likes knowing what's coming together. So some actually want to just do it themselves so that they're completely aware of the changes that are being made into their environment. So on the one end, you can do it like that's a key reason why you do it yourself. If you don't want to do it yourself and you want us to do it, happy to do it. We'd still give you feedback on the changes that we made and we'd summarize that for you. So just let us know either way. You'll be getting email reminders that let you know that this is happening. Any person who owns a hub that has any of this will get that type of feedback. Or owns a table that has scripts will get that type of feedback. Any person who is an organization level admin will be getting a summary of, especially like for scale up and like team plan customers, you'll be getting a summary of the ones that are relevant for you that you may not be responsible of directly, but you'll know who it is and which hubs it is that will be impacted by this in order for you to be able to better track the migration. So those are like the key things in terms of product. I don't think Miro was on today. He was on last time, and I forgot it, but I thought it was really, really cool. So I just got this email from Miro. So Miro is from Weights, and he just sent me this, as you can read it. Now getting the team to add the below logo in. I think you should have someone formal when someone passes training. And then he wasn't gonna charge us for the logo. But you can see here there's like a Morta champion logo. I think it's an interesting concept, like keen to understand, like keen to hear your feedback on it. One of the things we're looking at doing is like having some form of an assessment for users in order to see that they have like competence and how they're building on the platform. I think every one of you, to be honest, on the call would, I know, like, because I know you're building itself is the biggest measure of your competence, like so to speak, in building on the platform. And like all by design, anyone who's been invited to the community sessions is a champion, like of the platform, to be honest. But it is an interesting one, so I'd be keen to understand what you think of this, especially as you're looking at it beyond you and you're looking at empowering other people within your organizations, like to do things. I thought it was just interesting, so I just wanted to highlight it to the community. And I think that's it from me for today. So I'm just going to open it up now for questions, discussions, and then we can take it from there. This is the moment where, okay, awesome. Let's start with Ertrude.
Hi, sorry, probably not a super technical question, but is that presentation you showed us available somewhere in case we wanted to have another look?
Yeah. So what we do after this session is we will record it. Like we recorded the session. It goes up and online, and you can see the YouTube at your own time if you want to watch that. Last time I also sent the actual uh, like the actual pages that I showed within the email that I followed up with. So I'll do the same thing this time around. And we're going to go back to also doing our monthly emails for everyone who's like a paid user on Morto, so that even the people who aren't on the call are aware of any future updates that are happening.
Oh, that's great. Fantastic. Thank you.
No worries. Any other thoughts, feedback, questions? Eduardo?
Just a quick one for me. So now we have the Teams plan and we have the capability to work with template management. So just a question about if there's a way you can learn how the best practice to work with templates, because I think some expectations doesn't necessarily align what we thought that could be or how it do template works, because we work with hubs and duplicate hubs, and how templates is basically based on documents. I just more of a question if there's actually see if anyone have any experience working with that and easy way to actually scale up Morta on multiple projects, or maybe I'm not using the best way.
So your question is, what are the best practices for use of the template management, like feature itself?
Yes.
And the features in relation to templates management. The first on our end, I will double check, but I think we do have documentation on it. If we don't, we should. But I'll come back. I'll come back to that. Companies are now should be starting to look at using it. I don't think many are actually actively on template management yet. So most started by duplicating hubs in the way that you described. As we've been releasing it, people have been seeing what that looks like, and they're starting to like look at using it. I'd be curious. I'll pause in a second to see if anyone has tried it. And then we're getting some feedback on what's good about it and what doesn't. There is rationale for why we use the documents. It's because we see that as the interface, like fundamentally. And then that means that it carries forward a lot of what's in the tables as well. So that's the idea behind using the documents as the main unit, like for all of it. But we're also seeing there may be a need for like hub level templating. There is a question mark on what happens when the tables are in a few documents and you want to update a lot of these. So we're getting like various types of feedback on that, and like we completely, like as always, like welcome that feedback. But I'm just curious, like people on the call, has anyone tried the template management feature? Any thoughts on that? Yeah, I'd be fine. I think no. So I think no one is saying that they. Yeah, no one has. Let me just quickly, while we're here, let me just quickly explain how that works if you've not been aware of it. What I can do is I can first lock a template. And I'm not gonna do it completely now, but I can lock a template. And then if I lock it, and then someone comes in and instantiates from the templates, there's a mess in mine because all of you invite me into your hubs, and then I can't. I can see your templates, so I just sorry, I don't want to open it. But I can load the template. Once I've loaded the template into another hub, if I've clicked lock, the user will not be the hub in which it's been instantiated does not have access to the edit mode. They're forced to use the structure that has been set and that has been pre-specified. They can add in things like personal views and so on and so forth, but they can't edit the structure of the document and they can't go into the tables. Part of why we're not doing the table, like part of why it's not the tables, is because you don't want them going into the tables and changing the part of the templating exercise. Is you want to set the schema of what is happening here, and you don't want many of these people manipulating that data. So that's a lot of why it's on the document level. So then if you've locked it and you've set it as a template, I can then sync my change to the children, like anything that has been instantiated from that template. When I think that changes, it propagates across all of the ones that have used it. And then it goes from there. Now, one of the points of feedback I'm getting is like, as I've heard, is should be a mix. But that's like the key thing. So I would recommend for you, especially if you're looking at new projects, because this doesn't cover your historical projects that wouldn't have been instantiated from it. So I think it's actually important for you if you're scale, like especially, I don't think it applies as much to the consultancies, but especially tier ones that are rolling out. Sorry, when I said consultancies here, I mean more like PMC consulting. If you're a design consultancy, like that multidisciplinary design firms, you should be thinking about it this way. If you're a tier one and rolling out Morta for information delivery plans, you should be thinking about it this way. The idea is you use the template, you cascade that, like people use that, and then you want to make changes, you propagate the changes across all of your hubs rather than across a single one for that specific document. The second element is I can also do something similar on a hub level. So when I'm duplicating, I could then, wait, I'm confusing something. I'll double check this. But I think we can do it on a hub level too, unless something has changed on our end. Is the second thing. But give the templates functionality a try, because that is actually really, really key to where you all want to head. And we want feedback on what works or what doesn't work within that in order for us to accommodate for that. But yeah, I don't know if
definitely helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, just a comment. It's about the lock the duplicate hubs. Sorry, the resources that actually lock the resources from the hub that is coming the information from and the duplicated one? Is that what you're trying to say when you're trying to find the functionality actually that works as a template? Because I think I done before, and when you open the new hub, you basically don't see most of the tables because they're coming from the source. So maybe this is the reason why.
So the tables themselves, the tables are local and are editable there. Like as in I can fill in different data in different hubs. I'll probably for next time I'll be more ready for template management. It's like that. I don't want to do that one completely on the fly right now. But you'd have different hubs which each have the lock template. I can fill in different TIDPs and MIDP, like I can fill in different data within the different hubs. That's not a problem. It's the schema that we're aiming to drive consistency in, which is why people basically can't see the table, because then the moment I have access to the table, I can edit the schema itself. Now, the second thing that is relevant in this scenario, and that's the one that I know many of you are using, is, I'm just gonna go into, I know I'm not sharing screen. If I come in here, I can import data from other Morta tables. So if I was here, I don't know what I picked, but let's just go with it. And I click import data. This is more, I can sync reference data and make sure that that reference data is consistent across my different templates. Now, when I propagate the template, that should also impact the sync preferences. Like that, in theory, even if it doesn't, it should. So that they are slightly different. Having consistent reference data within the template is powered by the syncing functionality, which I know many of you are, like the importing functionality, which I know many of you are using. The structures and making sure that the data collection is standard, a lot of that is being covered by template management. Design. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes for me. It's just about template we've been using a lot for if you want to exchange, some people will show how we are doing works on the Morta and the supply chain looks and see that's useful. You basically just create a template from a document and they can replicate on their side. And you can easily make connections between the tables. This has been quite useful.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
Yeah.
No, thanks for that. Yeah, exactly. Like ultimately the idea of all of this is to drive standardization. I mean, one of the topics, like your more owner side, like obviously if you look at like the design firms and the tier ones, one of the things that I think is going wrong is a lot of the IDPs are reactive to what a client wants on a project level. Whereas what should happen is you should have a standard way of working as a company. That is what you should be rolling out at scale. Or this is how I want IDPs to be. I am now starting and then I can make changes across all of my things if I really need to. And then on a hub level, if I want to export things to meet the specific client's naming convention, I'm talking by naming convention here, I mean the column headers. I should be like, I do that as an output rather than as my standard way of working. So like the aim should be you're driving, because you all have standard operating procedures as companies for what you want to be doing, but then you don't actually enforce the standard operating procedure at scale, because most of what happens is the person working on the project comes in and changes the IDP to just be whatever the client wants, and then they completely ignore your standard. Whereas it should be that your standard maps into the output and then you produce things from there. So all of this is to say is a lot of template management comes down to just like enforcing standardization at scale, which then helps you have consistency, which then means you can analyze the data better at scale, and then you can do all kinds of things with it. Any other questions? Helen.
Sorry, I just have a bit of a comment regarding the transitioning from scripts to formulas. And I just want to say I do like the formulas. I find them very efficient and much faster than the scripts are. But at the same time, sometimes I still find use cases for scripts. For example, the other day, I had a case where I had to iterate through a multi-select list. So I have a multi-select column, and I had to iterate through the list of values inside one cell. And I think I just like the scripts for the flexibility, which sometimes formulas maybe are not able to do until you produce more and put out into Morta. But I don't know, yeah, it just makes me a bit sad maybe that they're going. Just when I usually get the idea, I just have a chance to test it out instantly with the script if the formulas are not capable, but yeah.
Yeah, so two things. First, part of why we think the vast majority of use cases have been covered in formulas. We know that there are probably some gaps. So part of why we have a few month period, right, is because we want to make sure that these cases are covered. So if there are certain things that we currently don't have, like the example you just gave, point those out to us, please, and then we can have a look at adding these as formulas. I appreciate it is not as it's less open, but then we also think that there are going to be there are potentially various other ways that that gets tackled in the future. But yeah, like it's a direction that we have to take from our end, and then we are thinking about more and more how do we build on formulas more. Like there is an opportunity from our end as well to package more and more of these formulas that are really unique for the industry and that cover a range of needs that you would have. But I think like the other thing is it's a lot of it is about accessibility. Like we still think formulas are far more accessible than scripts, just fundamentally for most people. And that's a big part of why we're making that decision. But just the key thing and what I'm saying is if there are cases that we don't cover, just let us know because we then want to at least give you a way with which you can cover that over the coming few months. And that's why we have a few month period before we make the shift.
Yeah, I understand. Like I definitely prefer formulas in terms of efficiency, and I would use them everywhere if I could. But I also like that option of scripts. But yeah, I understand. So yeah, thank you.
No worries. Any other questions or thoughts? Amazing. If there's nothing else, then if you have any questions you want to ask me in like private, just drop me a message. If there is any feedback, please keep sending us the feedback. Like I hope, and I think you all know this, but like we take the feedback very seriously. We are continuously making improvements off the back of the feedback. If you voice the feedback, we're more likely to do something with it. So just do let us know, especially for these features we're adding. Like we're not adding things randomly, we're adding things because you've asked for them. We're usually prioritizing things around information delivery planning, frankly, because that's what all of you are starting with, and that's the one you're using at scale. So, and then we're heavily like looking at whenever anyone has things in relation to scaling, that's another area that we're like heavily looking at. So any issues that are there from like things like template management. I know Mark, you posted something around user groups the other day. Like all of these types of things, even you'll notice sometimes there are ones that I'll specifically ask questions about. Usually they're something that we're heavily we know this phase of scaling is different to using us on 1 or 2 or 3 projects. So that's an area that we're like very actively looking at, and we react off the back of the feedback that you provide. So and a big part, like there are different like philosophies with how you develop a product. We'd rather put matrix views out there a bit earlier. As a in Jad's words, I think he put it like as he said V0.1 or something like that in chat. Like the idea is we put these things out there, you use them, and then we can actually build something that is truly useful to you, rather than sitting and theorizing or even just theorizing with you. Like I don't know if I've just invented a word, I may have. Like and just coming up with stuff on our own. It's much better if we put it in your hands. We then know we're building something that is actually going to be really useful for you. So that's why we release these in beta, but they're only going to be as useful as you want them to be if we get feedback on them. So please do test out the types of things that we're putting out, and let us know if you have any feedback in that regard. Cool. And with that, thank you so much for joining. We'll have another one at the end of the month. Next month, I'll be sending a follow-up by Monday latest on what we went through today. The video will be uploaded on YouTube, and then you'll have a copy of what I shared as well. Cool. Thank you so much for joining. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone.
Good, Mo. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.